Joining me now is Brendan Buck, former top aide to two Republican House Speakers, Paul Ryan and John Boehner. Brendan, thank you for being here. Help me understand, is there any sort of, if you will, succession plan here? Does this redound to Jim Jordan's benefit or maybe even Kevin McCarthy's benefit?
It's possible. I mean, at this point, you could throw out any name right now, and I would tell you it's possible. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. The problem here is you have a House Republican conference that doesn't want to be led, so you can't elect a leader. There was a lot of reasons people were having problems with Steve Scalise, but I think fundamentally the biggest one came down to they didn't feel that he had sufficiently laid out a plan for how they were going to move forward, fund the government. What that basically means is he couldn't indulge in their fantasies about things they wanted to do, spending cuts, things that were never going to happen. It just shows you that no matter who you have in this position, you're never actually going to be able to be in charge. People are going to be shooting at you no matter what you do. I certainly think Jim Jordan is a possibility at this point, but this is not a job worth having under these circumstances. These people are not reasonable. They don't want to be led. They don't want to govern. They want to play games, and it would be funny if there weren't such serious consequences for what could potentially happen in the next few weeks if we are not able to get the House back up and running.
Yeah, it's tragic on a certain level. And we haven't, I mean, there are 36 days before the government shuts down funding for Israel and its work in terms of the fight it's fighting against Hamas. There are massive questions about how we move forward as a country, as a governing body. And the Republican Party has created a logjam of epic proportions. I have to ask you, is this crisis, in particular the Scalise crisis, the fault of any particular faction in the party, or is it just everybody deciding that he is not their man?
This is a conference that's dysfunctional and hard to manage when there are a lot of, when the adults are in charge. But right now, it's been a jailbreak. Everybody is a free agent right now. Nobody is in charge, and everybody feels like they have their own certain leverage. That was what's so hard about Scalise and why I think he dropped out so quickly. He had some conservatives who didn't like him. He had some more mainstream members who had issues. He had McCarthy allies who didn't like what happened here. So it's all over the place, and nobody feels any real obligation to anybody. That's why I struggle to see anybody really moving forward and getting 217 votes. Maybe this will become just so unbearable and painful that they'll kind of throw in the towel and rally around somebody. I use rally around maybe too loosely because I don't think anybody is going to have any real legitimacy in the conference. But there's no real clear path ahead. You may end up having a situation where the House just has to act without a speaker, and Patrick McHenry is effectively empowered either through a vote or just on his own taking action to do some of the things that you said have to be done. Look, if we don't have a speaker in a month, we have to fund the government somehow. They'll figure that out. But in the meantime, it will just continue to be embarrassment because nobody feels any responsibility to the team or to their basic fundamental obligations, which is to fund the government, to do the work. They all want to play their games instead.
Does Trump matter here? I mean, he endorsed Jim Jordan as Speaker. He lost effectively in the secret vote to Steve Scalise. But a lot of folks are citing Trump's comments yesterday, talking about Steve Scalise's serious trouble relating to his blood cancer treatments and casting aspersions on his health. Do you think that factored in at all here?
I mean, leadership elections are really member to member. They're really inside baseball kind of stuff. I don't want to ever say Donald Trump doesn't matter in the House Republican Conference. He's the biggest voice. But I don't think this is what took down Steve Scalise by any means. I think it's just members don't feel any obligation or they don't fear anybody at this point. I don't think they fear Donald Trump as it relates to, he endorsed Jim Jordan and Jim Jordan lost. But it just shows you how chaotic it is. You have people trying to nominate Donald Trump to be Speaker. And as far as I can tell, they're serious about it. So, there's no order here. We could be looking at this chaos for weeks, I think.
Do you think there's any sort of shame or embarrassment within the party? I mean, you say there's no allegiance to the party, there's no allegiance to actually doing one's job. But it's so obviously a disaster for the party to not be able to pick its own leader. Do you think that there's any sort of contrition here about what's happening?
In my long history of working with House Republicans, one thing we are really bad at is learning lessons. I don't think that there is. And the reality is we've talked a lot about the broken incentive structures. For a lot of these members who are blowing the place up, they don't pay any price for it. It's good politics where they are. And all of them have convinced themselves that they are doing the right thing. They are standing up against the swamp, whatever language they use to justify it to themselves. You would think in the context of what's going on in the world and everything that you just talked about, that you would stop for a second and think, gosh, we are being really petty. Look at the scale of the problems in the world and look at how we are responding. But I don't think a lot the people there are people who are saying that, but those are the people who aren't causing trouble. The people who are causing trouble think they're crusaders. They think they're on the right side of history somehow, and they'll never really learn their lessons. I think at some point it will just come down to pure fatigue. I think they'll just be so tired of being in this situation and want to do things that maybe they'll allow somebody to have the gavel. But again, that person won't actually be in charge. Whenever we have to fund the government in 36 days, I assure you, whoever is holding the gavel at that point is going to have their job threatened.
Joining me now is Ali Vitali, NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent. Ali, thank you for hanging with us in this late hour. It sounded like Steve Scalise's support eroded over the last 24 hours. Is that accurate?
Well, it definitely didn't go up to near the 217 number that he needed, Alex. He spent several hours today meeting with folks who were either never going to vote for him or said they were never going to vote for him, but just hadn't been spoken to yet. Those meetings didn't yield him any more votes in a positive direction. That being said, people in the room were surprised, and frankly, so were reporters when Scalise ultimately dropped out tonight. And that really does put Republicans back to the drawing board. No official names in the mix now tonight. The first person we all thought of was Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, because he was the person who garnered 99 votes behind closed doors yesterday when they all met and ultimately made Scalise the speaker designee. Jordan told me that out of respect for Scalise, he wasn't going to make anything official, no announcements tonight, but we widely expect Jordan to be the person to beat, the next man on the chopping block, if you will. And the reason I say that is because everyone here has a math problem. When members were going in and out of the first meeting that they had today, one of them joked with me that if I saw smoke coming from the room, it wasn't because they elected a speaker, it was because they decided to burn the place down. That's a little bit of gallows humor, but ultimately that does kind of feel like where we landed. Complete chaos and no idea what's next.
Yeah, it sounds officially like the House Republican Conference is ungovernable. And my question to you is, given the looming government shutdown, given the the international situation that we are all witnessing unfold in the Israel-Hamas war, is there going to be a conversation with House Democrats anytime soon? It does not look like the Republicans can do this on their own.
I've been so struck that those conversations haven't even been happening sooner. I'm talking to several Democrats who would at least be open to that. And quite frankly, the leadership offices are surprised that Republicans haven't at least done some cursory outreach in a real meaningful way to try to get some Democrats on board for something, whether it's making the pro tempore speaker, Patrick McHenry, a more official speaker so that he can at least move legislation on the floor condemning Hamas or giving more humanitarian or military aid to Israel. All of those things you would think are being talked about, but Republicans would rather argue among themselves than look across the aisle and try to do something to fix this moment of chaos. And it sort of makes sense as to why, when you consider the fact that the only reason they're casting about for a new speaker right now is because McCarthy ended up having to do the thing Republicans won't do now, which is look across the aisle and avoid a government shutdown. Democrats, more than Republicans, voted to avoid that shutdown just a few weeks ago. Another one is looming, and I think the lesson for the Republican conference wasn't look bipartisanly. It was we have to stay within our own ranks or else someone else from within our own house is going to try to oust us from our job. It's not a great lesson to learn, and certainly the House is not functional, but it seems like the lesson that they're going with.